And here we are. I think it all worked. Only a couple minutes late. Welcome to Momentous Live, episode 24. We're all breaking out a 2-4 in celebration, right?
Cheers.
It's just the Three Musketeers this week. Tasia Custodi has decided to keep us waiting a little longer, and every week the suspense grows, but she will be back. And, if not, we'll find another willing victim or two to come and join us to fill in her gigantic shoes. Hey, how you guys doing?
Fantastic. I mean, I spent the weekend camping again, so that's always good, right?
How long before you're going to start having to file tax returns from a different geographic region, given the amount of camping you've been doing lately?
You act like that hasn't happened already. How about you, Will?
Okay. Been better, been worse.
Fair to middling. Got it.
Yeah. Some tough news today, which we won't get into, but that's okay. Oh, by the way, hi, I'm Tristan Jutra, and to one side of me is
William Silver,
and bringing up the bottom for
I'm Gray Williams.
You're not usually you're usually a top, I understand, but
easy to settle. You want to get a reputation here.
So we've got, despite the fact it's the summer doldrums, we have a grab bag of interesting stories, and let's just dive right in. Now, this one might not seem like a huge deal, but it's more of a gateway into a bit of another topic here. So Bird is the latest operator to integrate its e-scooters and e-bikes with Google Maps. So they are a micromobility company. They have e-scooters, e-bikes, as we've mentioned. They're joined the likes of Lime and others. But integrating into Google Maps just makes things a little more, a little more reliable from a mapping perspective, being able to see where their devices are using the Google Maps platform. And they've partnered with major national rail companies in Europe. And they're planning to expand the Google Maps integration through partner cities outside of the U.S. So, at the end of the day, this seems like a bit of a sort of wonky kind of bit of information, but I just wanted to use this as a gateway into talking a little bit about e-bikes and e-scooters. But starting with asking either of you, have either of you rode any e-bikes or e-scooters? Let's start with Gray.
So I actually own one.
Okay.
I own a Xiaomi, I think it's an M365. I loaned it to my friend AJ, who's had it for a year. AJ, if you're watching, I wouldn't mind that back at some point.
He's not watching.
He actually blew both tires on it, went out and bought some new ones, despite the fact that I had replacement tires for it, which if he had asked, I would have given him them. But it's a great little device. The challenge for me was living in the Vancouver core, owning an e-scooter. There's a high likelihood that, just like a bike, it's going to be stolen. And so, I could take it to work, I could take it back, but if you're taking it to the library, you're taking it somewhere to eat, people do it. You see a lot of the folks around on food delivery services, they're on them all the time. The challenge right now is they're not really endorsed by anyone in Vancouver. They're not legal per se. If they go over 32 kilometers per hour, they're absolutely not allowed. Which this M365, if you buy a little $20 or $30 mainboard, will do. And so I bought that thing, obviously. Over 32 kilometers an hour on a scooter like that is terrifying. But needless to say, it's a cool product. What I'm getting at, though, is that I'm a Shaw Mobi bike subscription member. And for $100 a year, you get unlimited 60-minute rides, at least with the coupon thing that I've been doing for the last couple of years. And that to me is awesome. Those are regular pedal power bikes, but they're everywhere, all over the city. So I can pick one up, literally Abbott Street around the corner from me. Not to dox myself, you guys know where I live. But you can take it anywhere in the downtown Vancouver core. And there's probably a Shaw station near you. And I'm using the internal mapping system to figure out where that direction is. And so what I'm getting at is this would be incredibly helpful for me. The e-bikes and e-scooters are even more useful than the Shaw Mobi stuff currently is, because I can get somewhere and won't have to really break a sweat Whereas, in the middle of the summer or even in your spring and fall, if you're going a long distance or you're going up some of the hills that we have in Vancouver, some of them are okay, but some of them can be quite a challenge. You're kind of not in business meeting ready state. So that's, yeah, exactly. Right. So looking at this, like, I'm kind of kludging this together with a bunch of different stuff right now. If I had the ability to say, I'm going from here to here, and it's going to present me with walking directions, transit directions, God forbid, drive my vehicle, or I could grab one of these things, especially if I could book it. I'm going to book that one right there, and I'm going to be there. That would be really helpful for me.
Yeah, and the advantage of e-bike, like you mentioned, or e-scooter, as opposed to a totally self-propelled one, is the being able to show up a meeting not in a moist state.
One of my favorite words. Well done.
Will, have you ever had the opportunity to try out an e-bike or an e-scooter?
No, but a different kind of e-scooter was sort of not the ones that's like a mini motorcycle, like the ones that kids kind of use with the handle, those type. I was in Portland a few years ago, and they had just sort of started a program of putting them on the streets. And I don't know how you got one, but they were all over the place. You would see homeless people riding them. Like, it wasn't a very well thought out program, or it was kind of just like free to everyone. I wasn't sure how it really worked, but literally I would have to step over them on the sidewalk. Like, they were just littered all over the place. I'm sure they've worked it out since. Someone can correct me on this now. But Google mapping might be useful, because this would be like claiming shopping carts or something. They're probably all over the place in Portland. You'd find them in bushes. Homeless people would be hanging out with like 3 of them. So again, that was a few years back. Ray, you're saying that it hasn't improved, or probably hasn't improved.
Well, from what I'm seeing, you're actually seeing a lot of the same things, and a lot of complaints from cities and from folks in cities who are looking at these things. And yeah, they do get picked up anywhere, and they get dumped anywhere. The advantage to the Shaw stuff is you pick it up from a bike rack that you lock the bike into when you're done.
Yeah.
Getting that kind of real estate, though, is challenging. And I think the benefit of Bird and others was that, it's just a scooter sitting here on the sidewalk. Meanwhile, there's somebody in a wheelchair going, there's 5 scooters in the sidewalk. I can't get around. So it's definitely not without its challenges, but I think they're still working on it from what I understand. I've seen vehicles driving around cities like Seattle and Portland. Might have been Portland, actually, where they were just basically picking these things up off the sidewalk and dumping them in the back to take them to a more central location. It just seems like bad behavior,
I love the idea, but like you say, Gray, there needs to be a depot or something. You shouldn't just be able to discard it on the side of the street. And
vending machine with a big dump bin.
Yeah, the rollout of Bird and Lime and other e-bike and e-scooter lending companies was a little rocky in cities like Portland, San Francisco, and others, because it was one of those cases where they just showed up and deployed, kind of like Uber did 10 years ago, where it was, it's easier to be forgiven than receive permission. And I think the local municipal governments then had words with said companies and told them to clean up their acts a little bit. But Lime has actually just launched in North Vancouver, where Momentous headquarters is here. And they have a full fleet of 200 electric assist bikes have just hit the roads. I've started noticing them in the neighborhoods. And the intent is to give residents and visitors another carbon-free option for getting around with e-bikes that make climbing the North Shore's imposing hills a comparative breeze. So that, I think, is going to be interesting. I'm currently in the market for e-bike ourselves. Both my wife and I had been looking at regular bikes for a bit, but North Shore, when you live in North Vancouver, the hills are a thing. And unless you are a hardcore mountain biker, which we are not, but just interested in a little recreational biking, you want to be able to smooth out those hills a little bit. And that's where e-bikes come in really handy. You still can pedal as much as you want, and then be able to throw on that assist as necessary. So starting to see the Lime bikes across the North Shore haven't become a menace yet, but it's just like there's one on that corner and there's a few blocks away, you notice another one, and we'll see how that all goes. But unlike the Shaw system, there is no central place for docking them, at least that I've seen yet.
I will say that, we were just over on the North Shore for a very festive party for someone that we love very much. And we took the sea bus over. And it was one of those things where like getting to North Van by the sea bus it's exciting. Like it's a really cool way of transport. And getting there and realizing that, you kind of got the key, but anything else is way uphill. And the bus system is good, but it's still not something that I'd like to rely on. I'd like to be a little bit more self-reliant. And so the idea of an e-bike being on the North Shore is actually incredibly appealing. It really unlocks that whole place, because I don't want to take the landscape. It's rammed. I don't take the secondaries. It's rammed. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It is. Something's gone wrong. You're not getting through there. The C-Bus rarely runs into traffic, knock on wood. And so like having that is, this actually like it really opens up that city for those of us who don't necessarily want to drive in, don't want to be driving around, but still want to get around there. So I'm actually, I might actually see if I can take a trip out there this week and give one of these a shot.
Darn it, we were trying really hard to keep out the ne'er-do-wells.
I am the riff-raff, I apologize, but I'll be gentle. I'll try to put the bike away in a nice place.
Not sure who that person you're referring to with regards to the celebration there, but they sound extremely young and extremely handsome, and we wish them all the best.
Bon anniversaire to that person.
My birthday's still a while out.
Oh, okay, fine. Let's make it about you. So, speaking of bicycles and birthdays and all things child-oriented, let's take a hard turn into child sexual abuse material.
That is a hard turn.
So Apple made some announcements over the last couple of weeks regarding their efforts to help stop the spread of CSAM, child sexual abuse materials. And this is a very complicated story. There's lots of angles to it. There's, of course, privacy angles, civil liberties angles, child protection angles, and we are by no means experts in any of these regards. So there have been all sorts of ink spilled on this topic over the last week or more. Follow-up interviews given by Apple executives on the topic, all sorts of podcasts dissecting this. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel here, but what we'll just do is give a quick overview and point you towards some links that we'll include in the show notes to have a read and make your own judgments and assessments on this issue. So, Greg, can you walk us through the high-level basics of what Apple has stepped into here while trying to do the right thing?
Well, they're trying to do the right thing, not just for, obviously children who are vulnerable, but they're trying to do the right thing for users to make sure that they're in the clear, but also they're trying to do the right thing for themselves. So the idea here is with the CSAM database, it is a database of known images that pertain to child sexual abuse. And so when we're looking at this, basically what they're saying is that if you have images in iCloud, those images will not be looked at by anybody at Apple, but each image has a hash, basically a numerical identifier that says this is what's in this image. It's hard to fake. It's almost I won't say it's a foolproof system, but it's pretty darn close. And so what they're doing is they're doing a numerical analysis on this hash to see if any of these images are showing up in someone's iCloud photo library.
On their phones, however, not in the cloud, right? And that's where some people are getting a little
on their phones, if their
out.
Phones are synced to iCloud.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not synced to iCloud, again, it's the same as always. Your phone is your own phone, and nothing is being examined on this. Now, when we're saying, when it's on your phones, again, if it's synced to iCloud, there is a copy of that image on the iCloud database. And so this is essentially the same process here. When you opt into iCloud, you opt into the agreement that they're going to be liable for things that are on their service as well. If you think of it this way, if you have these images on your server and you put them on Apple's server as well, you're making them liable in a very roundabout way. So there are a lot of folks out there who immediately, just the rapidity at which people clutch their pearls on this one in the name of privacy was interesting to me, because I'm a big privacy buff. But how can I say this? I really hate child sexual abuse, and I hate child sexual abusers, and anyone that would propagate that material. I'm really interested in seeing that come to an end. So I'm looking at this whole scenario and saying, for folks who are saying, not on my device, not at any time, great. You know what? Door's there for iCloud. You don't have to use it anymore.
And that's where. Sorry, finish your thought.
Well, and it's like I wear this shirt for a number of different reasons. The idea of Big Brother watching, of 1984 becoming a reality for a lot of people, that surveillance, which is more Brave New World than 1984, but still, we're looking at this and saying the potential for illegal content on someone's system. The amount of false positives that would have to happen, they've put a number of safeguards in place. They also have the actual database available for people to see. And Craig Federighi, who's come out and said that there will be multiple levels of auditability on this as well. Because the next thing that people went to, went straight past, not on my device or my cold dead hands, went to, well, what happens when China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or any other country comes to the United States, comes to Apple and says, we would like you to add this to your CSAM scanning database. And you have to do it because we're telling you to. The folks out there have basically the pointing things like when India went to BlackBerry and said, you can't have end-to-end encryption on your devices. And there was that push comes to shove, and BlackBerry unfortunately folded. But Apple is saying that they're going to stay strong here, and absolutely not. Under no circumstances will this be something that is able to happen without multiple checks and balances that go into place first.
And I think that is one of the things that people are getting hung up on, because 5 years ago we had the showdown with the FBI and Apple refusing to provide a backdoor in order to access the locked phone of the San Bernardino massacre terrorist, basically. And what they were being asked to do is kind of provide a forked version of iOS that could be installed that would have a backdoor for authorities. Apple drew a line in the sand there. Now, people are saying, well, in other cases, Apple has caved to authorities because they also say, well, we follow local laws. When it came to the FBI case, there was no actual law compelling Apple to fundamentally change their operating system to cooperate. However, Apple has handed over materials when it's been found on iCloud accounts and whatnot. Similarly, in China, iCloud operates on Chinese servers that ostensibly can be accessed by the ruling party in the People's Republic of China as well. So I guess what seems to be people's concern here is that, well, when push comes to shove, are we supposed to just, now that Apple has kind of opened this door, are we supposed to trust that Apple isn't compelled by various authorities to go along and add additional types of hashes to these matching algorithms and basically collude with totalitarian governments to further oppress their people?
It's funny you should mention that, because in that particular case, Apple did include what was called a warrant canary on their website, which is language that is used to show that something has or has not been compelled to be done, and still managed to run on the right side of national security legislation. So basically, if they are compelled to do that in a court order that's in camera, that language goes away. And I would imagine that Apple will have something very similar for this, giving users the ability to know if something like this happens. I would also think that if it comes down to it, push comes to shove, Apple obviously is looking to be on the right side of history here and help deal with child sexual abuse material, but is also, if it does come down to someone looking to manipulate or violate the end user security overall, I would see them re-examine this immediately.
And just to set the stage for folks, these are changes coming with iOS 15, iPadOS 15, and macOS Monterey, all of which should be rolled out in the September-October timeframe.
Only in the US.
Correct.
So US this database will actually ship on all the operating systems, but the scanning will only be available in the US, which, when you're thinking, like, obviously, as goes the US, so goes the world in a lot of ways. Here in Canada, this is not currently a concern for us.
And if people want to opt out of said program, they may change the language at some point, but currently you simply turn off iCloud PhotoSync, which does remove some functionality, of course, but and maybe they will add some additional options or language to make it very clear what you're opting into or opting out of by flipping that switch. And the other thing that they often gets lost in this too is all of the other major online platforms and operating system providers, including Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, and so on, have been scanning photos on their servers for the better part of a decade at this point, and have reported hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of findings each year. Apple's reports have only been in the hundreds, so they're playing catch up here. Some people speculate that they're trying to get ahead of perhaps some forthcoming legislation in the United States to show that they're doing the right thing. But as Apple often does, they're often not first, but they just want to get it right. Unfortunately, they kind of botched the communication side of things because, and Graham will go to you on this too, there's another set of protections that they're trying to roll out here, and it has to do with integration into the iMessage system. And children under 13 years of age, either trying to send or receive potentially explicit materials, and perhaps some notification, there's some confirmations there. Are you sure this could be harmful? And if you do decide to view it, we are going to let your parents know, just, FYI. People have raised some concerns about that. Can you elaborate on that angle, which kind of got conflated into this and, again, made people's heads explode a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. So when we're looking at your iOS device or your macOS device, if you do have the family options set up, you can have users set up as administrators, parents, and parents and guardians, or as children. And so when you're looking at kids who are set up as children under 13 years of age, they've put in some safeguards. These are pretty impressive. And so essentially what it is an image scanning algorithm that, again, no one is looking at. This is not going to someone at Apple to review.
At least not right away.
That's right. They're reviewing the data, and basically what it's doing is it is blocking content that is coming in or going out from that child account. The image will be blurred, and the child will be warned. And so there are some helpful resources that would be put in as well. Now, when you think about this has actually been an issue on the internet since the internet was the internet, right? Predators do a really great job of grooming kids and trying to get them to do things that kids should not be doing. And this goes back to accounts on IRC. We saw this in news groups back in the day. We've seen this in all sorts of video games. If you go around town here in Vancouver, you'll see bus stop ads that talk about this stuff, trying to educate both parents and kids that like hostile predators on the internet did not go away. They have not gone away. They will not go away. And so when this sort of thing happens, this does probably one of the best things, which is it lets the kid know right away, this is not okay. Doesn't let them see that content, and then also lets them know that mom and dad will be warned. This is Apple.
If they choose to proceed, that's my understanding of it.
Yes, yeah. And now this is, it feels a bit like Superman stepping in front of a bus. What Apple is doing here. They're really trying to take this bullet for kids out there, and what we're seeing people react saying, my privacy, my rights, folks. I've not heard the good argument against this yet. When we're looking at this as well, we're looking at older children. There are additional ways for them to control how this is impacting those kids. But for the youngest of kids, it's the biggest and most strong set of protections that go in here.
And you'll notice in the screenshot that I'm displaying now from one of Apple's web pages, the language there, it's speaking directly to children and trying to make it clear what they're doing in not overly technical language. There's this could be sensitive to view. Are you sure? Then some further details. There, liberal use of emoji in here. And then the next step, it's your choice, but your parents want to know that you're safe. So giving them the heads up that if they proceed, their parents will indeed get informed. One of the other issues that people have raised, especially when it comes to older children, say teenagers, that, kids struggling perhaps with sexual orientation issues, gender identity, and so on, that they could be inadvertently outed to parents that may not be terribly sympathetic, causing some potential unwanted family strife, or But again, hopefully there is enough warning there for said underage individual to be able to read what they're getting into before crossing that bridge with their parents. Will, are you for or against child sexual abuse material, and or for or against privacy? Where do you stand on this? You don't have children yourself, but you have some nieces and nephews in your life, and they are, imagine, or online. Any sort of gut reactions to this controversy and this issue before we move on and leave the rest to the experts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you in Gray in the sense that, of course, this is horrendous that this kind of material propagates online, and that children are groomed or confronted with adults who wish to do them harm. And I'm also with Gray. I think that it's sort of like a game of cat and mouse or cops and robbers. I mean, like, the internet provides them a new avenue, and devices provide people who want to commit crimes new avenues, and checks and balances need to be put in place. I personally feel like it's funny that in the last 20 years, and maybe it's always been part of North American DNA, particularly American DNA, in my opinion, this sort of freedom at all costs, this freedom of speech, even if it hurts others, or and I think that there are limits, and I think that again, we're also talking about, we're putting safeguards on certain age groups, and to your point, Tristan, it's even just warning. It's not necessarily stopping some of this content. It's just putting in some checks and balances, some warning, some safeguards. So I mean, from what I see and hear and read, I don't see it as that objectionable. It's funny because in the 80s, there's all these bans on video games, or concerns about music and stuff like that, and you didn't necessarily hear that as many people as you hear now about freedom of speech. So it's funny how things have maybe changed a little bit, or the worm has turned in some ways. But yeah, no, I think with new technology comes new problems, and we have to address them, and pretending that they don't exist isn't an option either.
Yeah, also in the 80s, tiny advertisements in the back of certain smut magazines for Swedish kiddie porn as well. So it's not like this is a new problem. There's a dark underbelly of society, and they will use whatever technologies and avenues available to them. But I think that's what one of the very few universal issues that almost everyone can agree on is like child sexual abuse and associated materials bad. So let's do what we can to mindfully limit its spread, protect children, and safeguard people's privacy. So I think this isn't the last we've heard of this issue. One other quick thing, and I don't recall if it was on the photo hash matching angle, or if it was on the iMessage photo AI scanning, but Apple said that there was a 1 in a trillion chance of a false positive, because that's the other horrifying angle too, is getting falsely accused of collecting or possessing said materials as well. That's the flip side of this issue. No. And they also set a threshold. Craig Federighi in his interview said, roughly 30. Like, it's one thing if you accidentally, stuff gets sent to you, maybe by people you don't even know. But if once they start to notice people amassing a collection, you get a number of positive hits, then maybe the authorities will be alerted. So again, they're trying to thread that needle there.
Even with those false positives, though, the image is encrypted into a security certificate that's what's then scrutinized. So if there's something that is not this type of material, and it's put in there, and somebody looks at it and goes, well, that's SpongeBob SquarePants, and there's nothing wrong about this, then you don't have to worry. If you have 30 of these things show up and they all are a suspect, you're going to have an issue. One last thing before we go on this one, and it's something that I've seen across a number of different forums, Twitter, Reddit, and so on, and that is I'm done with Apple because of this. Oh, these grand declaratory statements. Aren't they just fantastic? Like, don't you really just feel good? Where are you going, guys? Who out there has your privacy in mind on all of the other issues and this sliver? Nobody. So, as much I love a good rant as much as anybody else on Reddit, but really, child sexual abuse is the hill that you're going to die on? Come on.
So exactly. And these things, complicated issues, take a lot of care and thought to do well. So again, there was the unfortunate messaging on Apple's part, and Craig Federighi also admitted that they probably should have had separate announcements for those related yet separate initiatives that they are rolling out.
Can I just add is like, this is part of my complaint just about Twitter and the internet in general and social media, is that it skews negative, and there's no warm up for something like this or to roll this out. They made a mistake. They've admitted it. Like, as I always quote my wife on this one, you can please none of the people none of the time. What do you want? Child porn? Is that what you want? I mean, like, so I just think, like, to Gray's point, it's just hyperbole. It's I don't know, getting attention online, whatever it is. Being negative is fun online. You vent, you can beat up on Apple. They're not going to fight back. So I just think it's garbage. If you ask me, it's fine, leave. It doesn't affect me.
Or opt out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, there's more to come on this issue for sure. Speaking of pleasing none of the people, none of the time, HP has announced a couple of new Chrome OS based devices, including the Chromebase All-in-One, featuring a rotating 21.5-inch touchscreen starting at $599 US, and the Chromebook X2 11 detachable with Snapdragon 7C, a fingerprint reader, USI pen, whatever that is, and LTE from $599. So HP had a virtual event the other day, and these products were announced. So, Gray, is this the return of the toaster fridge, or what are we seeing here? Is there an actual market for Chrome OS based devices with their limitations in a desktop form factor? Let's start with the all-in-one.
I mean, I'm looking at this and I think this thing looks fantastic. I don't know a lot of end users that would take a look at this and go, this would be my first choice, but that conical base, which I believe is a speaker as well, the rotating screen, which as a reference material computer would be very, very cool. I've had the vertical screen going on for some years with some of my setups, and it's very handy. I'm looking at this and thinking, for anyone that wanted perhaps a lower cost point of sale machine, or they wanted a lower cost machine, if you were perhaps like having an online store, an in-store installation that also had connectivity to the internet, this looks really cool. And that price point of $599 US, that's tough to beat. That's a really cool way of sort of packaging this thing up. I just bought my parents a brand new 24-inch iMac, and that thing is just stunning. And the installability of that is quite impressive. It's very, very slim. Looking at this, you're looking at the same sort of thing. So this, to me, it looks like a kiosk computer. I don't know a lot of users that would look at this and say, Chrome OS in a desktop as my daily driver. There might be some Chrome OS aficionados out there who absolutely love it. I don't know that there are a lot of them, but I think this does have a place to be. What I will say is that, even with the convertible machine here as well, HP's gone back to doing something interesting. It's really been years since I've looked at something from them and thought, wow, you've got something very sexy here. Bang with some speakers, like very cool stuff. So, at the risk of sort of cheerleading something that I wouldn't buy, this actually looks like a pretty cool set of computers at a really aggressive price. Who else in the market is doing something like this at this price with all of those features?
Agreed on some of those points, especially the kiosk notion there. I just want to bring your attention to this screenshot. If this is supposed to be a 4:3 screen, is this other orientation? Did they do something to the aspect ratio? When you tilt it, it magically goes to 16:9 or whatever the heck this is. Like, is that a Photoshop error? Will, what is your design eye say there? Is it just me?
I think that might be a Photoshop.
Well, I don't think
oopsie. What's that, Gray?
It is 16:9, right?
Well,
it's 1920 by 1080, right?
Okay, so why is it that when it's rotated there, it looks so much thinner? I think because even look at the width of the keyboard. I think they screwed.
I think it's an optical illusion, to be honest. Or they've set it back. They've set it back because look at the size of the base.
Okay. So
they've set it backwards because the size of the base is actually quite a bit bigger. But so that's pushed forwards, and then they've set it backwards, and
so
maybe so that it can be the same.
One, yeah, maybe the other one is like stretched the other direction. It's taller than it's So I'm getting confused. The 4x3 was for the convertible, but there's whatever the case is. I'm almost 100% sure that the aspect ratio is different from these two pictures. Not that it's not in the forensics business here, but
it's just that the one on the right has been set back because they wanted them to be the same height. So if you take a look here, the keyboard sits lower on the right, and the top of the monitor is at the top of the monitor there. So they've literally just moved the camera backwards from it to give you the same height of picture on both of them. Sure. So it's just set backwards. It's an optical illusion, but I
don't know. We're gonna have to do some screenshots.
Can I tell you my complaints? Why didn't they rotate the image?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the thing. I guess they're trying to show it off. Who knows even what that is? So, Will, you've been a laptop guy for a while. We're seeing some experimentation in this space with these all-in-one computers. Obviously, the iMac has been a thing since 1998, and then a couple of years ago we had the Microsoft Surface Studio, which is impressive in its own right, a premium product. But here with this device is Chrome OS based, so it's mostly just a web browser, and then throw on the ability to run Android apps on top of that with recent tweaks to Chrome OS, and hopefully a little bit longer shelf life than a lot of the entry level Chromebooks that we've seen. That people have to basically trash after a year or two because they just aren't that great. It's the higher end Chromebooks that get up into the full laptop prices are a bit more interesting and have more longevity. But Will, have you ever been tempted to go back into the desktop realm, especially with a nice all-in-one computer, whether it's something like this or something more like an iMac or a Surface Studio?
No.
Okay.
To elaborate, no, this isn't for me. But I love that they're doing something. To Gray's point, to your point as well, just that there's more options in the market. I'll give you a use case as well. People that I know that have Chromebooks. So a friend of mine bought 2 of his kids Chromebooks when they had to do school at home because mom and dad were also working and using the computers. They had to buy 2 cheap computers that were just purpose use for basically doing classes online. So, I mean, I think there is a market for this type of device. It's not the 3 of us probably, but it's just good to have cheaper computers out there for people on low incomes or for kids, their first computers, or elderly people or like my mother who don't run the Photoshop or the Adobe and just want to check the email and and maybe buy something online. So I think there's definitely a case for a stripped down computer or tablets, and this is basically, some of these just look like tablets put on a base with maybe a little bit more power. Anyways, I think it's great that they're out there, but yeah, not for me.
I think in the case of their convertible, the Chromebook X211, another great name, guys. They're kind of taking the iPad case sort of approach or smart keyboard sort of approach. There's no, is there a trackpad? I think there is a trackpad there. Yeah. Both this and the all-in-one have the touchscreen compatibility. I wonder, however, with Google's play with Chromebooks in general, is because they are so inexpensive, basic feature set, they don't try to be all things to all people, but they've really dominated in education. If it's just getting the kids hooked into the Google ecosystem with regards to Google Sheets and Google Docs and Gmail and all of that Google has to offer. And then no matter what device they get, be it Android, iOS, Windows, Mac OS, that they're going to be hooked on the Google tools. Any thoughts on that, Gray? Is that just conspiratorial? Or do you think Google's really earnestly wants to be in the hardware business for its own sake?
I think they're Trojan horsing it. For sure. I mean, looking at the Pixel, they tried so hard to get it right. It feels like they're getting there, But yeah, I'd be more apt to buy a Pixel device than any other Chrome based or Android based device. But still, I'm having difficulty seeing the larger play here. You know, basically, I'm looking at HP, and HP is probably saying licensing's cheap, so we can knock a couple $100 off this thing, which may actually get us a little bit more traffic on it.
That's a good point for sure. Definitely cheaper to produce than Windows machines. The licensing alone there. And speaking of Pixel, the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro should be out this fall, but the reviews are just coming out for the Pixel 5a now. So how do you like them apples? Not sure what's going on with their release schedule there. Next up, what do we have here? We're leaning hard into the fun territory here. Nerf just made the iconic Aliens pulse rifle into a badass foam blaster.
Yes.
I mean, we are truly living in the golden age of toys and entertainment. I just thought I would share this with you guys here. Just set your sights on that. Any thoughts?
I love it. I love it.
Enough said.
It's a little pricey. It's like $130, but you know, I love it. I think it looks cool. I love if it actually counts down the rounds in the chamber or what have you.
This one's only $95 US.
Oh,
the $130 is the blaster from the Mandalorian.
Ah, okay.
Equally worth your well-earned dollars. But yeah, I mean, if you thing is, like, I would imagine that if you're a Nerf aficionado, you probably already know, and you're probably already lining up for it. Cool little mechanism, like so great. Yeah. What? That's all I got.
Your wallet saying "Game over, man."
Game over.
Fair.
The only Nerf stuff that I had growing up when I was 8 years old, I got a little Nerf basketball and a little Nerf basket, and I could toss that in.
Well, speaking of tossing stuff, like, have you seen there was an April Fool's Day thing for the Nerf nuke?
That sounds vaguely familiar. Refresh us.
Okay, so essentially what it was it was something that you could fire, but it was almost like it was like a nuclear bomb in that it had all of these Nerf darts around it, and when it reached its target location, it would fire all of these things out in rapid succession. It has been an urban legend and April Fool's Day joke since it launched, which don't quote me on this. I think it was around 2014. That said, there are STL files that are starting to make the rounds around the 3D printing circles for someone who is working on.
Saw the kitty.
He's been working on a functioning model of the Nerf nuke. So you know, if you're passionately into the Nerf ecosystem and you want to keep the Nerf ecosystem unirradiated, perhaps keep an eye out for the nuke.
I think it's important to teach children about the power of nuclear weapons at an early age. So next up in the fun department here, there's finally a new Densha De Go train controller, and it's awesome. So this is a little spotlight into a world that I barely knew existed, but this controller for this train simulator game is version is now available for the Nintendo Switch. Have either of you ever played this game or know anything about it? Because it is wild, and the controller is equally interesting. I mean, that's what you want. You know, some of the best arcade games were the ones with the custom controllers for the game, as opposed to simply a joystick and a couple of buttons.
I've not played this, but this, I mean, it's cool. The interesting thing here, $155, and they're saying they're making a batch of these, never to be made again. So I would imagine if this is your game, you are probably wallet out already. It reminds me a little bit. So Xbox had a game called Steel Battalion that I think was $300-ish that shipped with a coffee table size controller. It was like a little battle mech sort of thing. You know, Dave & Buster's used to have the Robotech pods that you could get into that had that sort of experience as well. You know, going back, games like Star Siege Tribes, I had a setup that actually had my keyboard, my mouse, my joystick, and my game controller, and a script that would auto switch between all of these things to give you more precise control as you played it. You're going into Microsoft Flight Simulator recently, like relaunched. It was last year, and I've got a set of pedals, joysticks, a full set of throttles and controls. There's some pretty interesting and some pretty cool stuff out there. And when we're getting into like custom controllers, everything from iRacing with car racing as far as interactivity goes, and you're playing sims. Even Microsoft Truck Simulator, they've got some dedicated stuff here. So it's amazing that this got this controller after, was it 14 years that it's been out?
And look at it. Look at this. It looks solid. Look, you can be an actual train conductor.
I was definitely thinking Steel Battalion as well, Gray. Yeah. And it just, I think those still go for a lot of money, that whole setup. It was like, like 3 different terminals that you had to hook up to. A friend of mine has that set up for Flight Simulator. He's got a special little, I don't know, pod at his house that he set up with a special chair, and they've mounted the things and pedals at the right height. And it's just like, wow. Yeah. I mean, it's cool, but I'm not enough into any game to have a full setup like that.
Have you ever had any sort of oddball controllers for any games throughout your gaming career? Like aside from the general kind of joystick or trackpad kind of situation?
I had, well, I mean, I don't know how oddball this is. I had the Sega Genesis bazooka, if anyone remembers that. I can't remember what it was called.
That's next level, yeah.
It was not called the bazooka, but it basically was a bazooka. I think that's the only thing I can think of,
because Nintendo started out with the Zapper, and then you had the Super Scope 6. I mean, it seemed like back in the Sega Genesis days, even a controller with 6 buttons was actually, they released one of those specifically for fighting games. I've got a Mortal Kombat fight stick downstairs. Rock Band really would kind of be the big one.
Yeah, Rock Band. I also had a fight stick for fighting games.
I thought you had a fight stick for Rock Band. I'm like, okay, we were playing very different songs then.
Yeah.
That's the punk version of Rock Band.
I had the full Rock Band kit, but the problem with that is you do need other people, because otherwise you're just using one instrument at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I sunk $300 into the Ion Drum Rocker. I think I paid $100 for a real drum pedal that had been wired up to work with the game.
Oh, wow.
With the Xbox One, you actually had to buy $100 adapter to make the original Xbox 360 controllers work with it, which I used all of once and then sold, I kid you not, last year for $300 on eBay.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Exclusive. Again, limited like this controller.
So maybe it's time now for what I like to, maybe what we'll call Uncle TJ's Cabinet of Curiosities. So join me as we... So Exhibit A here. I have another one of these. It's a Wicco version, but I just brought this because it's bigger. This is the ColecoVision trackball, where you would put your ColecoVision controllers in these 2 spots here, and you have a single trackball with some, a couple of buttons here for fire. So you would use this with games like Slither on the ColecoVision. And this connector, these might work on Atari. So it could work with Centipede and Millipede on the Atari consoles. And I'm not sure if Atari made versions for the ColecoVision or not. So, trackballs were not entirely unusual. You would see them in arcades and then some home versions as well. But then the Coleco had some other cool stuff. I mean, it's not what we see nowadays for the full driving setups that you see on display at, say, Canada Computers and whatnot. But Coleco, again, to differentiate, they had a little steering wheel and a little gas pedal here.
Nice.
You would put it on the floor. And then I think you could put your ColecoVision controller in that space, so it's the same size, and you could use the knob as a gear shift and access some of the other buttons on there. So,
cool.
I never had this as a child. I got this and the trackball and the ColecoVision Atari adapter, so you could play Atari cartridges on your ColecoVision. The Vancouver General Hospital thrift store a few months ago for $10.
Wow.
Nice.
For the batch. So yeah, they've been sitting in my basement gathering dust, but I gotta fire up my ColecoVision sometime and get those going, because I really wanted these so badly when I was 12 years old, and now I've got them. It's like, now what? But I have a CRT TV downstairs. I'm gonna eventually get set up for some of the retro consoles. There's so many things to do.
Of course, you have a CRT TV downstairs.
Of course, I'll be back in a sec.
Don't get locked in the basement.
Taking the elevator up. Okay.
There we go.
And we're back. So that was installment 2 of Uncle TJ's Cabinet of Curiosities. Next up, what do we got? We got a little bit more fun before we wrap up here. So we talked about driving simulators and custom controllers. Yeah. So speaking of gaming, who here has a PS5? Anyone? No, not me.
That's
Will,
me.
not yet.
Not
I'm
yet.
still rocking a couple of PS3s. Will, you've got
We're
a PS4.
Yeah,
What are you
we're
waiting for, Will? Like to actually have them available in this
Well,
lifetime?
that's part of it, but partly my wife just wants to wait another year until we get a better TV, and then we'll
4K.
upgrade if they're available.
Mhm.
But yeah, trying to get the last little bit of life after the old systems.
Now, Gray, how did you go about getting and securing your PS5 during these challenging times?
A huge shout out to my buddy Ged Smythe out of Guelph. Thank you, my friend. One of his friends had actually secured 2 pre-orders and didn't want one of them. And he asked me, do you want one? And I kind of resigned myself to not getting one. But I was like, yeah, here's my money. And it showed up like 3 days later. And it's interesting because I've got a very high-end gaming PC that's got all the bells and whistles except for a new video card. And the PlayStation 5 outperforms it. It needs that last video card piece, but it does 4K 60 frames per second at Destiny 2, and it's glorious. And so if I'm not feeling like I want to play with the rest of the folks that are in my clan, because they're all on PC, I will fire up the PlayStation 5, and it's just that nice, calm experience by myself as I kick the crap out of a bunch of aliens. Knowing that, like, I've got so many friends. My friend Sean has been looking for a PlayStation 5 since it launched. It's almost become a bit of an obsession for a lot of people. And it's
unreal that we're like 8 or 9 months in now, and there's still such constrained supply, probably exacerbated by the worldwide chip shortage
and the worldwide scalping issue. And this is something that I cannot say vehemently enough. There are ways for our retailers to deal with scalping. Mm-hmm. You could have credit card number locked to 1. You could have delivery address locked to 1. And just have it done like that. Maybe you've got to have go as far as have a rewards account so we can verify that it's you. But between video cards, between PlayStation 5s, between all of these things, hell, even concert tickets, it's just gotten to the point where we have people who are leeching off the rest of us because they have access to Python scripts or they're staying up later or whatever it is that they're doing. And it is so unfortunate that these people are costing the rest of us time and energy and money. It used to be that if you wanted to scalp something, you had to go and you had to line up to get those tickets yourself, and then you would scalp those tickets out in front of whatever it was that you were doing. The automation of this is what makes it disgusting, right? If you're putting some effort in, I'm not going to begrudge you that effort. But if you're using a robot to do the work for you, I don't want to say die in a fire, but I'm coming close.
Just wait till Apple targets its cannons on this issue someday. Right? Bless you, Will. So for those who have had trouble trying to track down a PS5, CNET had an article that highlights a few different places that you can try to find PS5s. And this is, again, largely US. There are Canadian equivalents out there. But the one little update that I got a little excited about today was PlayStation Direct had opened things up, and you could get into a queue and be able to buy directly from Sony PlayStation. And now the page has changed since we started the show, and it is simply showing as out of stock once again. So I actually had a crack at it this afternoon, but I was busy, assembling our rundown and whatnot, and didn't prioritize.
Man. Get your PlayStation.
Yeah. Maybe we'll put it on the Christmas list or something. Again, like Will, we don't have a 4K TV. I'm not a hardcore gamer, so I'm as much buying it for the 4K Blu-ray player as anything else, and then we could see what sort of casual games and or karaoke options there might be available for that nice, admittedly very nice looking unit. Now, Will, Gray, I have to ask: is your PS5 horizontal or vertical?
It is horizontal. So it is actually sitting inside of our IKEA setup. It's weird because there's this little disc that has to go underneath it, which doesn't really lock in that well. They're really looking for it to be vertical. But I don't know if you've met this guy. Not happening. Not happening.
Because
yeah.
Just keep it at the edge of the the TV stand.
Sorry, now that you bring up cats and PlayStations, so we have a PlayStation, not vertical as Gray said, but or not horizontal or vertical. It's horizontal, and it's in the bedroom next to the TV, and so we can watch some streaming services and play games, sometimes in the upstairs. And our younger cat likes to jump on it so she can get towards the window. So sometimes in the middle of the night, the PlayStation will turn on. And then we have to turn it off, turn on the TV and turn it off and do all that fun stuff. So yeah, cats, PlayStations, good times.
What better times could be had than combining cats and PlayStations? Well, how about we save the Canadian cinema industry and all subscribe to CineClub, brought to you by Cineplex. I just got an email a couple of days ago. I participated in a survey process a few months ago when they were trying to work through some details on this. But basically, for $9.99 a month, less than the price of most movie tickets, if you ignore the cheap Tuesdays, get a free movie every month. And those tickets can accumulate, so you can roll them over to the following months, along with cheaper member-priced tickets and a 20% discount on concession items. Any thoughts on this? Because I have some.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, AMC's been doing this in the States, from what I understand, for a while. I love the idea. The little caveat, at least for me, I think my wife and I would be talking about it, but my brother, super nice Christmas gift, a lot of forethought. Christmas 2019, bought us $200 worth of movie tickets for Christmas. Yeah, it's the thought that counts, right? Like, and they're still good, but yeah, so we're going to be going through those tickets for a while yet.
Now, there was a service in the United States a year or two ago called Movie Pass, which was a third-party service that was actually paying full freight to the movie theater chains and then getting people to sign up. And the idea being that, a lot of people would be subscribing but not actually using the tickets on a regular basis. The whole gym subscription strategy there, where people sign up for the gym subscriptions or gym memberships at the beginning of the year, and most people don't actually end up going beyond the first couple of weeks, but they keep paying every month. This is a little different because it's Cineplex itself, so they're ostensibly buying their own tickets at cost in a sense, and then delivering them to their members once a month. And for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, now the movie theaters are finally open again. Again, we'll see how things go in the fall. So for me, it's Instabuy. Again, I have a bunch of gift cards I'm trying to use up before I think I might participate in this. The fact that you can roll these over into to following months, so you can accumulate a few if there's a couple of dry months. August is normally kind of a dry month. It's a bit of a dumping ground for movies, but this year it's a little different because there's been so many movies piling up in the queue, waiting for the theaters to be open again. Now, note that you still have to pay extra if you want AVX or VIP or any of the other premium experiences, including D-Box as well. So this gets you a straight regular ticket, but does take the edge off for sure, and encourages you to go. And I think this could definitely be worthwhile for me. But then again, I don't have a 77-inch 4K OLED or whatever that Gray has. Gray, thoughts on this? And if I doxed you incorrectly when it comes to your home theater setup?
It's interesting because I obviously haven't really missed going to the theater in the last year. But looking at the value that they've got here, with the one ticket that again does roll over, the 2 additional tickets at $10 a month, the ability to upgrade to VIP or AVX. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not going back to a movie theater where I don't have my seat selected before I go in. That is ridiculous. That is archaic. That is an anachronism in this day and age. The 20% off the food, great, awesome. There seems to be a little downside here. Like, you're basically looking at, what is it, $120 a year for 12 movies. Yeah, it feels good. So yeah, I'd say I'm gonna go on that.
And the thing, I think this may have been spurred by COVID, is you can reserve seats now even when the non-AVX theaters. So previously it was only AVX and up that you could reserve your seats ahead of time, but they have since rolled that out even to the regular non-AVX. So, I mean, the downside, you're not going to get quite the same experience, maybe not as big a screen, maybe not Dolby Atmos, but for certain movies, it's fine. If you're going to see Suicide Squad, say, Sunday at 7:30 p.m., for example. Gray, want to join us? And maybe you want to do the AVX and pay
Now,
for the upgrade.
Was that Suicide Squad or the Suicide Squad?
Sorry. Oh, right.
Oh, geez.
Forgot the articles. So I think, yeah, I went all around on this one. And again, just got to use up, because I don't think it doesn't seem to me that you'd be able to use any gift card balance toward the membership, but maybe hang on to it for some of the upgrades. So we have to check out some of those details.
I'm not going to lie to you. If I'm buying this because of you two, because I don't go watch movies with anybody else now. So
I'll drag you out.
Just when I thought it was
Once
out,
again.
only back in.
Well, someday will they do, like when they have another Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, will they do a marathon that's, say, what are we're looking at, maybe 52 hours at this point?
I still have my
You're
medal.
David Blaning it at that point. That's a bit much.
We each got medals for doing that. I still have it somewhere.
I gave that to a friend for her little brother, and he was pretty stoked about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I gave mine to my little brother-in-law who's in his 40s. But we still have Stephanie's as well. So. And just a couple last things before we wrap up. Again, in the entertainment theme, Star Wars Visions. Star Wars turns into anime in action-packed Star Wars Visions trailer. So let's just play a little bit about this, and we'll let apparently Gray has some thoughts. Has some thoughts on this, and if I can hit the right button, we'll just have so we can get a content strike from YouTube here. We'll just let this play in the background. What's the deal here, Gray?
So basically, they handed this off to some Japanese studios who specialize in anime production, and it looks absolutely incredible. This is a retelling of certain things in the Star Wars universe, from what I can tell. They are original stories in some other cases. It looks so good. It's just I'm loving that we're starting to see the universe branch out. The prequels obviously were interesting for their time. The sequels. First one kind of had me. Second one really had me. Third one kind of had me. But now we're starting to see with The Mandalorian and in other spaces around the Star Wars universe. This is just what a delight. Like it's got kind of reminds me of Mask of the Valley of the Wind, a little bit of Princess Mononoke. Like there's just some really cool stuff going on here. There's a little bit of Fist of the North Star in places. So I'm looking at this going, yeah. I don't know where this is. This is Netflix, I think. No, where is this coming out?
Oh, Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, obviously. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, it's like I don't know if it's going to be premiere access or if it's just going to be a thing that launches on Disney Plus. But I'm so very there. Like this is phenomenal.
Will, how there are you?
Well, I'm going to watch it. I'm interested. I full disclosure, I'm not the biggest anime fan. I mean, I've seen Ghost in the Shell and Akira, and I like them, and some of the other big anime ones, but I've never been a huge aficionado. There was one similar to this for Batman a number of years ago. Maybe, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. They did a series of shorts with Batman done in anime style, and I enjoyed that very much. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's, again, just a way of expanding the universe and capturing some fans and presenting in a different light. Also, Star Wars comes from sort of Kurosawa movies mashed with cowboy movies. So this feels like there's some genuine DNA here that's being explored. And I really enjoyed some of the scenes of, pulling swords, like samurai swords and things like this. I mean, I think there's a lot of there. So I think that this is maybe not a natural fit, but a fit that works.
Yeah, and you make a good point. The original Star Wars, of course, was heavily influenced by The Hidden Fortress by Akira Kurosawa. And it is kind of neat to see Star Wars come back full circle and pay homage to Japanese storytelling and, by extension, anime as well. And I confess, I also am not a huge anime fan, been more anime adjacent over my many decades. Watched a number of the Miyazaki films, for example, but haven't really strayed too much further. I have to confess, I haven't even seen Akira. Like, I mean, I know I should.
We can solve that.
I should.
I'm so thrilled to you because it's a great time to come and see it because they've got an absolutely fantastic transfer that's available now. So I would love for you to be able to watch that here.
If they showed it in the theaters, maybe.
Just sit closer to my screen. It's 75 inches.
Maybe we need to get an 8K. So,
Just for the record, that was Batman Gotham Knight. It was 2008. I've actually got that on Blu-ray if you want to borrow it.
real-time fact check. Gotta love it.
It's good time.
And so, yeah, definitely. I think we're all excited to a certain extent. I mean, I watched the trailer for this, and again, even not being a huge anime guy myself, it looks interesting. It looks like they've done justice to some of the source material, and it expanded the universe a bit there. It seems authentic. They've got like actual Japanese narration with subtitles. Some people don't like to read their movies, so that may be a bit of a turnoff for some folks. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. We discussed What If, Marvel's What If recently, and that's another animated series, not anime per se. But did you guys see the first episode of that?
Yeah.
Like Captain Carter. So yeah, I mean, so far so good. I mean, I don't watch a ton of animated stuff, but if the storytelling's good and they've got a lot of the the original voice talent in there as well. So fingers crossed that they managed to stick the landing on that limited series too, because the comics were really cool. Speaking of really cool, our one and only Tasia Custodi. I mean, I assume she still exists because she's still pumping out content from an undisclosed location. Wherever she is. But this week, she graced us with a video, 10 Google Photos tips for productivity. So those of you who are deeply immersed in the Google ecosystem, you'll find 10 helpful tips here to get the most out of Google Photos. Will or Gray, either of you are in the Google Photos ecosystem? I'll take that as a no. Me neither. So, if only Jamie was here this week. Yeah. So for those of you totally in the bag for Google, check out Tasia's video. And those of you who aren't, maybe you don't use any kind of online photo storage and syncing solution. Check out our video at youtube.com/Tasia Custodi or at the direct link we provide in the show notes, and maybe you'll become a convert. Of course, there are other cloud solutions for photos, such as iCloud. Some people simply use Dropbox. I think OneDrive as well. But Google definitely has quite a robust offering when it comes to their cloud services, including Google Photos. But I am not a customer. That brings us to the end of episode 24 of Momentous Live. Thank you for all of those who tuned in, despite our late start. Gray Williams, Will Silver, thank you so much. For those of you who want to learn more about Momentous, you can find us at momentous.tv, twitter.com/momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv. Search my name, Tristan Jutra, on YouTube to find Momentous playlists. Eventually, we'll get our own vanity URL, and it'll make my life a lot easier. Until then, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.